When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair, when the saved of earth shall gather.
Welcome. This is video number 1. We're going to be talking about the context of Revelation chapter 19 and 20. So we're going to do a quick review of all the chapters leading up to those chapters. First, we have John telling us about the revelation of Jesus, Messiah, to the churches. That's chapters 1 through 3. We get 7 letters to 7 churches, as well as some detail about what exactly to expect from John's letter. In chapters 4 and 5, John reveals that he has been brought into this judgment scene where we are brought into the throne room of heaven, and there is some sort of judgment taking place. We find out that this judgment has been sealed. There's 7 seals. And so in chapters 6 through 7, Jesus, the Lamb, is the one who unseals those 7 seals. And then chapters 8 through 11, we sound 7 trumpets, which announce the judgment, which we're about to hear. And in chapter 10, we actually find out that John eats the scroll. And so we kind of are brought into the story by understanding that John is the one who's delivering this scroll of judgment, this scroll that has been brought about in heaven, and he is now delivering it to us. So we're listening and reading to this scroll. And in chapter 11, he invites us to come along with him as one of these prophets who will be allowed to prophesy, but who also might just die. But don't worry, we'll be resurrected along with John. Then there's this kind of final recapitulation of these scrolls and trumpets in chapters 12 through 18. We find out about this great sign in heaven, this woman who's giving birth to a son, and another sign, this dragon who's trying to devour the son. That doesn't happen. But now the dragon's upset about it, so he goes on to torment the women's children by raising beasts up from the earth and the sea in order to torment them. This seems to be a very apt metaphor for dragon as kind of a spiritual evil influencing the world and the governments and authorities. And so there's kind of this false prophet, the second beast, that represents the false authority, the false king, who is the first beast, that are all working on behalf of the dragon. In chapter 14, there's a call to faithfulness, and there's kind of a warning that there is a harvest, a reaping coming, in which many will be judged. Then chapters 15 and 16, we find out about this final set of 7 plagues. It's a repeat of the earlier plagues, but the volume's turned all the way up to 11, and it's just kind of crazy reading through all the images that John brings to bear in this metaphorical judgment that he's talking about. And in chapters 17 to 18, we find out about Babylon, who's called a prostitute, and she rides on the dragon. And I think it is a exploration of, obviously in some ways it represents Rome, because that's the Babylon that the people that John is talking to have to deal with. But in a lot of ways it talks about the Babylons that have been around since time immemorial, and that will always be around, corrupt powers, world dominating those who would exploit others for their own gain, and it talks about their wealth, and I think it should be convicting for us to think about how we participate in our own Babylon, whether that's the United States in some ways, or whether it's our own city or household governments. I think at every level there's the potential of this kind of corruption, self-serving, and exploitation of others that can happen. And then there's also a very good description in those chapters of how all Babylons are self-destructive, and the consequences kind of they bring upon themselves. The beasts end up devouring the woman because they are corrupt just like she is, so it's not a sustainable system, and they're destroyed. And so that is the first 18 chapters of Revelation in 5 minutes. It sets up the next 2 chapters, which we're going to talk about this week, very well. If you have questions, comments, thoughts about my summary, go ahead and leave those in the comments, or send me an email, thomas@lamplightersteva.com. Thanks.